Well, it's official.
At this time, I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here this evening. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then would be to consider the approval of the last regular meeting. That was held on July 26th. The council does have the minutes of that meeting. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by John to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And passes. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the Floodplain Management Ordinance Amendment, Chapter 38, Article 2. Jason? I'll call on Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Actually, on this particular item, we would like to reschedule the public hearing. We did advertise for the hearing tonight, but we would like to re-advertise it for the next council meeting. We've since noted that we should be making a few different formatting changes to the proposed ordinance, and we'd just like a little more time to get that done.
Is there a motion then to reschedule this public hearing until the next regular council meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig. Discussion? Next regular council meeting is your request, correct? That provides enough time?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. The next item would be the items on the consent agenda. There's only 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. They include the liability coverage waiver from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, as well as the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants to remove to discuss separately?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 5 would be consider the proposal for the indoor recreation facility and YMCA collaboration feasibility study. So the council did authorize previously our invited requests for proposals, and we now have the recommendation based on the requests for proposals that were submitted. So I'll call on City Administrator Sharon Hansen to present.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, I do have, I believe via Zoom, Mark Wenzel from 292 Design Group. If that's the case, is that true, Stephen? And then also in the audience is also Steve Brashier, the YMCA board chairperson, president at this particular time. So just a little review, and I don't need to go through all these slides, but if you recall, at the end of May, as the mayor alluded to, we did request to obtain RFPs for an indoor rec facility study, along with incorporating into the study the YMCA. This was based on numerous factors. One is we received a lot of input. Our comprehensive plan got some input about needs in the community. We did a 2021 Park and Recreation survey that talked about additional amenities. And prior to that was branding, and then the YMCA as well did some study of their particular facility and their future needs. All of this culminated earlier this year with the council adopting a resolution in January to not only request sales tax authorization for an aquatic center, but also an indoor recreation facility. Legislatively, strategically, it was decided to pursue sales tax authorization for the aquatic center. But the indoor recreation study needs was still something that the city wanted to pursue. One of the things that really kind of held us back on sales tax authorization request was we didn't have data, we didn't have some backing of what truly was the community need in terms of indoor recreation. So this is a really good next step. If we go back to the legislature, obviously we didn't succeed in the aquatic center. The legislature ran out of time, and in 2022, it's potentially possible we could reincorporate this back in. Sales tax, bonding, different revenue streams to possibly look at it. In addition, if the city was going to look at YMCA collaboration, what does that look like? What is the financial feasibility, just based on kind of some of their needs, which we've heard a little bit about deferred maintenance, and we also are aware of capital needs that they have presented to the public prior. So we really want to be thoughtful about how we want to go about this. And even though we have really strong opinions, we might be an expert in a certain area, we really have to have someone who kind of knows recreation and knows facility planning. And so the RFP did garner a response from 292 Design Group, which for some of you may be aware, they did complete our aquatic center, our existing pool, and did a study on the condition of that pool. And that was really good information on us to actually take the next steps with the aquatic center. And then partnering with 292 is Ballard and King, and they're known actually nationally for conducting recreation and facility services or studies that look at what the future could entail. I did put in the memo the cost of the study, which was $42,500, I believe, if I recall that correct. I did attend a strategic planning session briefly with the YMCA and requested cost share from the YMCA. They have committed $10,000 towards the study. I know initially as well, when I presented to the council on conducting this study, the council did mention including the school district and SMSU, and we are going to meet with them and for sure include them as part of the study and all the different recreational user groups within the city of Marshall. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if Mark Wenzel wanted to add anything, or if you just had questions regarding this request for proposal, or this proposal rather.
Okay, Mr. Wenzel, do you want to add anything at this time, or do you want to just respond to questions?
Why don't I take your questions, and if you need more from me, I can add more.
Okay, we'll open up then for questions for the council, unless Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point? Okay, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question, not so much on the study, because I think it's very well needed. I think I was probably adamant way back when talking about what Marshall needs some kind of an indoor facility. And like I talked to Sharon earlier this morning, while I like to think that the aquatic center will come back, and if we have to wait until 2024, maybe that gives us enough time to put together something for an indoor facility that we can combine the indoor facility along with the aquatic center. Not saying we can, not because I don't know what the cost would be, but and the legislation, if that goes back into special session, well, that's another whole gamut or obstacle we face. But I think if time permitting, I mean, I would like to see the study conducted, maybe that we could have a joint venture with, or a combined venture with the aquatic center and do it in one. Because again, this facility, you read through this presentation or the material that was given to us, I mean, we're not talking about a 20,000 square foot facility by any means. we're talking about a considerable size facility and cost factor, we don't have any idea. So, and the other thing I would like, I'll wait to hear from the Y, but since it is a cost sharing, I remember when the Y came to us before, they weren't that far off in membership. And the Y considers them units. So if I remember right, they said something about 2,200 was their high and they were at 1,800. So that's not too far off. And I'm just curious if that number has improved at all. And I lead that by cost sharing. I know you're probably, the Y is in a financial situation. Well, we're well aware of that. But I would like to see somebody, if the Y would step up and share the cost factor of this study a little bit more. Maybe if they can't afford to pony up all of it now, maybe it's the $10,000 now, and 6-8 months it's another 5, and 6-8 months after that it's the other 5. I'd like to see about a $20,000 contribution from the Y, at least to help offset these costs, because if it's a 50-50 partnership with the Y, I mean, that's what I would like to see the city. And I did read through the materials, Sharon, and I agree, because I was pretty adamant about including the school and the university and stuff. And I think the report does indicate that they would engage those folks as well during the process of all of this. And I don't have a time frame when, and I don't think you have a time frame of when all of this is going to commence and start and end, but hopefully it gives us some time to maybe converse with those folks, converse a little bit more with the Y, and maybe put a good plan together that we can maybe represent to the state legislature. So
Thanks, Russ. Sharon and I do have a meeting with the president of SMSU tomorrow afternoon. And then Mr. Wenzel, I think the time frame that I read was 5 months from the time for the study. You may want to comment on that.
It can certainly vary quite a bit from community to community. Our philosophy on this is that it needs to move at a pace that keeps things going, but not so fast that people feel hurried to make decisions. So we have seen typically 4, 5, 6 months works well in the community. The timing of this starting in the fall is a good time because studies like this don't work well during the summer when you're trying to contact people. So I would expect if something started in, let's say, September, that, it would be certainly feasible to have this done in, March, April, May.
Okay. Other questions? Steve?
My comment is, I think this is a great idea, but I think we need to look at, like this organization has done in the past, communities that have done this. As I envision what we're going to be doing, we need to have that big, broad view of not today, not tomorrow, not even a year from now, not 5 years from now, but more 10 years down the road. And what are we going to do with Marshall? Marshall's the biggest community in Lyon County. We look at Redwood Falls. They have a big community center. It's right at the school. That brings a ton of stuff in. It allows people to work out. It does almost everything that our Y does. I envision us getting a good pool, and you look at how do we make things better, like Mr. Labatt said, you look at the outdoor pool, and we had a monkey wrench thrown in that through forces outside of our control with the legislature. Maybe this is a time to re-examine it, as much as a pain as it is, but you look at an indoor-outdoor pool facility in the same place and see what you can do. And again, that's all cost, but you got to look at the bigger picture and what's it going to do for the community and drawing more people in. And if we build this community center for the people of Marshall, the people of surrounding Lyon County, I always go back to something that the Schwann Speaker Series said. It said, you don't build things for other people, you build things for your community members. And when the community members really enjoy it, then other people come in and really love it. And they go, wow, this is a great place. Let's relocate here. Let's put our business here because people love it here and it's a great town. I think that's what we need to do, and we need to look at the cost. And then, I still have struggled with the Y being a not-for-profit organization, and I'm a member at the Y. I love it. But then you throw the tax dollars in, so I need to have the experience and what other communities have done from that standpoint, too. So we can sell the project to our community members, not only Marshall City members, but this is going to end up being a school thing, an SMSU thing, a county thing. we're going to need to garner a lot of support for this. And I want 100, if we can get 100% backing from county commissioners and school board and SMSU board, then we've got it done.
Yeah, actually, my question is to Steve, the YMCA. Just maybe kind of cover what's your expectations of getting out of the study. We know from our discussions kind of what we're looking for from the city, but maybe get a little bit more feedback from the YMCA. What are really you expecting to hear or wanting to see out of this?
And I think when we first heard people talking about it was the idea of doing this extensive survey, to take a look at all of the recreational facilities that are out there, in Marshall and the area. Because I think a lot of times we talk about that we are competing with each other, where there's overlapping, somebody's offering programs that we're offering. And so hopefully it's all about efficiency, is how do we take best advantages of all the things that this community has. When you think about it, between the public schools and Southwest State and the Red Baron Arena and the YMCA, there's a lot of things out there that could be used and probably used a lot better than we're used right now. And so where I think I'm hoping for, is that when you're looking at indoor recreation facility, I hope when it comes back and says you've already got one. It's right over here in this building across the 2 blocks down. That's your indoor recreational facility. And what we really need, and I guess we've talked many times about collaborating with the city, is for us to have longevity. I think the city is the one way that we can guarantee that Y is going to be there forever. Because what kills us, and again, our members, we're doing well. We're now over 2,000 units. But units is kind of a funny thing to talk about because some units bring in a lot more money than others. If you're a scholarship member, you get a scholarship, you aren't paying full rates. If you're a Silver Sneakers member, at the most you're going to bring in is $40 a month, when an annual membership or a membership should be $53 a month. So those people don't generate as much money. The group that we're still missing is kind of that young family that would come in and would pay full price. And that's where we're down. We're up in youth, we're up in senior citizens. We're still down a little bit in that group. And I think something when you talk about longevity, when we were doing the major fundraiser and trying to get the $3.4 million, one of the persons that we had identified that we were expecting a fairly large donation, when we approached them, their final answer was, well, we don't want to do it now because we're afraid that we don't want to commit $1 million knowing you may not be here 5 years from now. Well, I think that's a thing that's out there, which that's a problem for us. Because we're going to be here. We may have to change some things because what hurts us the most is maintenance. $800,000 here 3 years ago to replace the air handler on the roof of the pool. Well, without that, you have no pool. And we understand how important the pool is to the Marshall area YMCA and the different communities that surround us. And so we have no choice. You got to fix it. Well, as Tom told me a long time ago, what kills Y's is debt. Is that we can run the programs, membership pays for all of our classes and our instructors and our staff. But if you have to put $800,000 into air handler, you're going to run into some real financial problems. And now we're dealing with the pool. That's another $325,000, $350,000 project. But again, same issue. If you don't fix it, you're going to have to close the pool. Now that one's going to have a good ending to it because we've already raised about $250,000 from donations. So we are on the edge of having the money. I would expect next week we're going to lock in our contractors. So come January, February, we're going to get the pool fixed. But those things, they create real problems for us. And I guess if we're looking at long term for the Y being here, this collaborative with the city would be pretty important, almost critical.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other?
One other question, Steve, for you, and just, do you think there's an identity problem with the Y? And I bring it up because it was originally sold as a community center, and it turned into a Y. Do you think people are still having that in their crawl? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
I haven't heard that
No,
for a long
no.
time, but I did hear it within the past 6 months.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that ever coming up as an issue for us. And sometimes I wonder what's the difference would be between a community center and the Y, except I think the Y mission is to make sure that everybody can participate in. And I don't know if a community center offers scholarships. I don't know if they raise money to allow people that have low income, no income, a chance to come to the Y, because that's an important part of our mission at the Y.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council regarding the proposal? If not, you have the recommendation. What are the,
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Steve, do you think the Y would consider added dollars? Over a period of time?
We're pretty open-minded. I mean, we'll consider anything, but even getting to 10,000, took a little arm twisting. I mean, I think we have board members that are going, that's a lot of money, and for the Y, it is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that came up, and I think it was already mentioned, is this study is for a lot of different agencies. And so sometimes I have board members saying, why is it just the Y and the city putting money into this study? Where is Southwest State? Where is the Marshall Public Schools at? Even maybe, I guess that would be the main players. But I'm guessing it's always possible. I mean, we can always, if that's what the request is, we can sure take that back to our board and see what the board members. And I'd hate to pay it out of my pocket, so I'm not going to say yes.
And Sharon, where would this money come from on a 23 budget?
Just a couple, I will get to that too, but just saying that, the YMCA did formally approach the council on 2 different occasions to talk about their future viability. And the study was titled with YMCA in the proposal. So this is more of there's more burden on the YMCA, in my opinion, than the other facilities, even though they may gain school district SMSU. We'll kind of see. We'll see. And but my recommendation for revenue source is the general fund balance in 2021. Community services did underspend their budget by about 50,000, so that would be my recommendation.
Because of COVID, probably.
Just a variety of factors, and not really one or the other, but.
any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we proceed with the proposal, and part of the motion is for the Y to consider an additional contribution.
Would that be, then if they don't, would that cancel us out, or what
I
would
just said to consider.
Okay.
Consider.
With that, I will second that motion.
Because if
Motion by
they
Russ,
don't, they don't.
seconded by Craig. Now, discussion on the motion. Good clarification. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move us to a vote on the motion. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll move along then to agenda item number 6. This is the Rose parking lot reconstruction. We have a change order, the final change order to consider, as well as the acknowledgement of the final pay request. Once again, I'll call on Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. The Rose parking lot is the parking lot that we reconstructed behind the nickel. Project turned out great. You've got a nice new concrete surface. I think it's well received. The final change order and base bid overruns did result in us going over the contract amount. The original contract was $140,177.51, and we did end up just under $20,000 over that budget at $159,778.08. Cost overruns were due to poor soils and uneven base underneath. We did over excavate, added material, brought in a pumper truck, did some different things to mitigate the poor conditions on the site. Knowing that there were these poor conditions, we made some changes in the Baldwin project that we bid afterwards. So I can answer any questions if there are any.
Questions?
I
move approval of the final payment.
I'll second.
Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 7. This is the the North 3rd West Lion Street reconstruction. We have review as well as the recommendation of the final street layout. Recognizing that there's been a significant amount of input, there's been a lot of public meetings about this, and tonight we do have the final recommendation. So before we really start in this, and I'll turn it to Jason in just a second, thanks to the Public Improvement and Transportation Committee that facilitated a lot of those input meetings, so, and spent a number of meetings going through what this proposal is that we'll have tonight. So, Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the committee. I agree. They spent a lot of time on this, and we appreciate it. So we have worked a lot, city staff, PAT committee. We've worked a lot with the Downtown Business Association. We've held numerous meetings. We've gone to probably 3 or 4 of their regular meetings. We've held some special sessions with that group, and we've really tried to understand their needs in this area. So you do see the layout on the screen in front of you. We've talked about everything in this area, from the traffic signal at Main and 3rd to the different parking arrangements and lane widths and sidewalk use. It's been a real all-encompassing conversation. So on this drawing that you see, you do notice that there's what we would consider streetscaping elements and different amenities on the drawing. Try not to focus on that too much tonight. That's not what we're talking about this evening. We're talking about just the bones of the layout, the curb locations, the kind of the parking arrangement, the one-way on 3rd, those sorts of things. So we've recently met with the DBA this week, actually, or this week, it was last week on Wednesday, I believe it was. We met with the DBA and went over this, and we did get some concurrence from that group that they can support this layout. We do have a letter of support in the council packet as well. Some significant items are that the traffic signal at Main and 3rd stays in place. That was a key consideration of the downtown business group. We were originally talking about removal of the traffic signal and placement of a dedicated pedestrian crossing there. That was not considered acceptable by that group. They felt like having the signal in place allowed for pedestrians to cross on both sides of the intersection, so they wanted us to consider that. We did that with MnDOT, and we went through that review, and MnDOT agreed that we could leave it. So the signal would stay in place. We'd just remove the mast arm with the heads that face 3rd, because they'll no longer be necessary, because 3rd will be a one-way going away from Main Street. I think that's the big piece that was hanging over our head with the DBA. And after we met with them with this proposal, they agreed that this is something that they can support, and they provided that letter. So I can probably stop talking at this point. If there's anything the committee wants to add to help with the conversation, maybe that'd be a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Craig?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to Jason and then Jesse. When Jesse was still here, there was a lot of work put in, and with the chamber helping to organize the Downtown Business Association group, and they were good, very open about it, and they were dedicated. They made the meetings, and it was a good dialogue. And I just really appreciate everybody, and especially the other two, my colleagues on the PI&T committee. We've had good discussion. We met again this morning and we kind of went over things and agreed that this is really about the bones of the project. And like Jason said, we're dealing with a footprint. There's some other issues when we talk about streetscaping and some other things that we'll discuss and flush out as we move forward. What are those options and what are the desires? But, that gets involved in what are the responsibilities and liabilities financially of the business owners and that too. So that'll come in the future. But we're very happy, and I'm really pleased to say that we have unanimous consensus on the PI&T to recommend to council to approve this. And I think it's a good thing. And I think that when we talked about it, these are these are 50-year visions when we do this. It's not for this week, it's not for the next 10 years. What we're putting down here is the foundation that street's going to have for 50 years. So we really wanted to make sure that where there needs to be opportunity, there is, and that it's a vision that looks forward and it still considers where it came from, because I think we're really proud of that, and the Marshall Walk, and especially with our 150th birthday this year, it was important to look at that. And we had, like Doc Allfelter is always pointing out, don't lose the history, because he's talked very fluently about all the way back to 1905 and, how did Marshall lay out. So we've really looked at over 100 years of background on this and taken all that input. So I just want to thank my fellow committee members and really appreciate it. I'm proud of where we came with this, with all the input and all the work that our staff did.
Thank you, Craig. Any other input or questions?
I'll just concur with Craig said, and I think we can demonstrate the work we put into this because there's nobody in the audience to even discuss it.
Upset, yeah.
Which means, we did put a lot of time into this, and it is set up because even the traffic light, because we've always concerned that the state could take that light down. So that's up, the light can stay, but if in 10 years it comes down, it's set up for the Hawk system. So it is a lot of forward thinking, and it was a lot of work. There was a lot of upset people at times, and it worked through. And it was government and good work. It makes me proud to be part of government when something like this comes together like this. Go ahead, Russ.
I would just like to echo what Mr. Schaefer said. As my fellow committee members could probably attest, I was pretty adamant at various meetings about making sure we listen to the downtown merchants and taking their informal survey into consideration and not trying to, shove something down their throat that they weren't happy with. Over the course of many meetings and a lot of listening, I think I'd like to say this is probably like a happy marriage. It's a compromise. They got some of the things that they were really adamant about, the signal light staying in place, so it's for safety reasons. Are they happy with the one-way? Am I happy with the one-way? No, but if you look, like Craig said, for future 20, 50 years down the road, it may come back and bite us and say it's a mistake that a one-way, but it may not, so I think we're forward thinking, and again, as my fellow committee members could attest, I was pretty adamant about keeping it a two-way. Doc Affolter said, keep that Main Street entrance to Main Street. So it'll be a new vision, and I think, like I said, it's a very good compromise between the business owners and the city. And I just hope that we can come now. The big piece coming forward will be the financial aspect, and that's something that we'll have to address later on, because that piece is going to be huge. Whether we talked this morning, whether we duplicate the Main Street policy or we do something different, but yeah, the not only 3rd Street but Lion Street is it's going to cost somebody a lot of money, and most technically it's going to cost the city a lot of money down the road. But again, I'd like to just thank my fellow committee members for putting up with my consternation every now and then. So
we've gotten used to you, Russ.
Thanks.
You're no longer the new guy.
Lucky stripe.
Any other input or any questions?
Probably no question, just comment that appreciate seeing the letter from the Chamber of Commerce supporting this through the Downtown Business Association. I think to me, that's a big deal. To have that support and have it documented, that was good to see. I appreciate that.
We do too.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I would entertain a motion on the recommendation.
I'll make a motion to recommend the street layout for 3rd and Lion.
Motion by Jim. Is there a second to that motion?
You guys gonna do it?
I wanted Russ to second it, but I'll second it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Russ seconded it.
By Russ.
I was just making sure you made the motion the right way.
Of course I did.
Okay, everybody understand the motion on the table? Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 8 is the update on the Enterprise Fleet Management Program, and presenting this will be our Director of Administrative Services, E.J. Moberg. E.J.?
Thank you. This is being brought forward at the last council meeting. It was requested to give an update on Enterprise and where we're at. So Stephen and I have worked to put this together for you. So if you want to look at the screen, you'll see that the first one there is the vehicles received to date. We've received 5 total vehicles from Enterprise, 2 escapes for a motor pool, and then 3 police interceptor utility vehicles for PD. So over the term of the lease, we're scheduled to pay out $149,731.20. On Enterprise's site, it shows that there are no vehicles that have been accepted by them as ordered and are in the process of being completed and delivered. However, that's different from the fact that we have submitted additional orders to Enterprise. And you'll see the enter date, that second column. Some of these were entered back in November of last year, and others were entered in January of this year. For these types of vehicles, there has not been an open period yet where they have been available. The F-150s just became available for order last Thursday, and they were expecting that their nationwide ordering would probably be limited and closed by Friday based on the orders that were out there. So quite a length of these are a great majority of these vehicles hopefully are now in the order status by Enterprise, because the order did include both regular and Super Crew, correct? Just regular.
Just regular, okay. So the Super Crews are not on part of this order, but we at least have 3 regular cab vehicles that are hopefully now going to be moved to a different status. So to date, with the 5 vehicles we have, you'll see we've paid $14,149.04. The first 2 payments this year were just on the 2 in the motor pool. Then we had 1 additional show up for payment in March, and then after that's when the other vehicles showed up and have been paid. Go ahead. So to pay for those vehicles for 2022, we've been doing based on the order status. So there was a budget of $53,772 from the general fund, and an additional $5,520 from wastewater. So there's monies on hand to pay for these vehicles as they do arrive. So that's what was going on there. And in 23, we're anticipating transfers from the general fund of $135,000 just for the vehicles we talked about thus far, and then another $12,600 from wastewater. The materials that Stephen and I, the records that Stephen and I inherited show that there were 5 additional vehicles planned for order in 2023. Most of those are 3/4 ton trucks. Then Community Services looking for either a ProMaster or a Ford Transit Connect. So those have not been available yet. As they become available, we've been advised to go ahead and order now, because even with the F-150s that became available last week, we were told that they're looking at 120 to 180 day fill period for what was ordered. So we're still talking potentially 6 months plus out. So they are saying that we could have a 9 to 12 month window yet for some vehicles as well. It all depends on the type of vehicle and what actually opens up. So if in future weeks, months, whatever it may be, that some of these 3/4 tons open up, kind of looking for some guidance to just go ahead and get them ordered is what we kind of would anticipate or request, just to get them going if we're going to stick with this program. But that's what we're looking for, I guess. From any feedback would be appreciated. I anticipate Steve and I both anticipate that we're going to kind of have to kind of restart the idea of which vehicles to be replaced. On the actual leases, it does talk about the fact that it can be for whatever period of time, whether it's 4 years or 5 years. If you keep the vehicle beyond that, it appears that you continue to pay the monthly charge for as long as you have it. So it's not that it becomes our vehicle at that period of time. So there are certain vehicles that we've held for quite a period of time throughout the city. There are certain departments that have vehicles that are 10 plus years old. If there's going to be vehicles like that, it might make more sense to purchase instead of going through Enterprise, where you're going to be
kind of pushed towards a new lease in 4 or 5 years, potentially.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
When we started this program, the word lease wasn't necessarily used because I believed that we could own these vehicles.
Yeah.
I was under understanding after 5 years, we own these vehicles. We would recycle them, I think it was every 2 years, wasn't it, what we're going to cycle them?
Yeah, we had
But if we count them 5 years, that we would own them. So if that is a change, that needs to be clarified, if that actually is a change or if that was slipped in there.
And we've had a lot, and thank you a lot
Yes.
for going through this. We really appreciate it. And the enterprise has been a moving target, and I know that with the supply chain issues and, you know, I hear stories about people taking delivery of vehicles now that are supposed to have heated seats and heated steering wheels, and those options are there, but there's no chip, so you get a warranty type card and you can take delivery of your vehicle, and when the chip comes in, you can make an appointment and they'll bring it in and install the chip and turn that option on. If the length of longevity of ownership, if we can't take advantage of having a vehicle that's well maintained and low mileage that we want to hold on to, but yet turn it over to enterprise to get a bonus of a trade-in, I think we need to reevaluate this. And Councilmember Lozinski and I have talked about this because we're two of the people on the equipment committee. So as we were meeting on PI&T, we did discuss the status of enterprise. And the reason that I was convinced, and I believe I'm not the only council member that feels this way, is enterprise was attractive because we could set up a regiment of how long we own the vehicles, get the advantage of government purchase price discounts, and then a discipline of turning them over on a fixed either condition of mileage and or age to get advantage of the auction value and be that discipline. But if they've got to come in front of the council every time we order a vehicle, there's not a lot of practicality in the use of that time. That's why the enterprise was attractive. But if as a council, we look at this and say, let's set a policy. We already have vehicle specifications, and unless the options change significantly where we have to review the approved specs, once it meets the protocols of the program that we set up for vehicle ownership, staff can turn them around. The council doesn't have to approve each single vehicle under a new vision. And so as we view enterprise, I hope we consider something like that, because the deeper we dig into this, the less it looks like what we were told. And I'm disappointed, and I'll just leave it at disappointed.
Well, and Craig, I'll touch on what you said about ordering vehicles. I know, EJ, you're saying there's a shortage of them. The type of vehicles the city of Marshall uses, you can get in about 10 to 12 weeks. Ordered one myself, I had it in 6 weeks. Because we get regular work trucks with no heated seats, no
Heated steering wheel.
Jason, I think your truck, you don't have, cruise control is about the only option you have, isn't it?
You have power mirrors? No? Okay.
No, those trucks are that's what frustrates me with Enterprise is I ordered one like that and had it in 6 weeks. Those trucks are coming. I think MMU ordered them too and had them. Correct? That they got
They're bigger bodies.
They're waiting for some trucks. I couldn't say exactly where they're at, but I know they are waiting for trucks.
But it's a turnaround that's, and I said, I've been told different. The Enterprises, the dealerships aren't catering to them or the companies because they want a discount. If I give a discount, you can sell them for full price. I mean, it's just economics.
Right.
So, and Enterprise, you just curious because we thought we owned these. Like we could walk away from this program and buy we own
Our
these vehicles.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
I understand what you're saying. What Stephen pulled up on the screen for you is that
Can we swing
put it
over?
on this
Thank you.
clause 2 there where it talks about the fact that this is on every one. This happens to be one of the motor pool cars. We can show you any of the 5 that we have. It does say it continues month to month for an unlimited period of time.
See, I wasn't aware of that. So if we don't sell this in 5 years, we have zero advantage to this program.
right.
Right. So if it's a vehicle that we might keep for a longer period of time, it might be one that you don't lease or go through this program, you just buy outright if it's going to be something that might be kept for 10 years. The way I'm looking at it, and that could change too. Stephen and I weren't here as part of we didn't have the benefit of being here when you guys were discussing it or know for sure what they promised or
Well, you
didn't
were with
promise.
the county when didn't the county sign up for Enterprise? We were told that when we signed our suit at the county.
The sheriff's office, I believe, is doing that. When I was there yet, they were still otherwise trying to buy, for the most part.
I could swear that said Lyon County had signed up to this program. That young gentleman said, I could swear he said that.
Well, I guess my thought on this, Mr. Mayor, if it's possible, is I think, like, we need some more committee meetings, but maybe the equipment committee needs to sit back down with our
administrative services and kind of take back a look at this and come with maybe some policy options that we can review as a council and set up our own enterprise instead of enterprise. Let's do an enterprise vehicle program and get back in control of our future.
Yeah, there probably should also be discussion by the Ways and Means Committee too, because the other advantage of this is not having the upfront either borrowing or debt for a
There's
short-term
an
asset.
upfront, but like Craig is saying, if we get the program set up and a future council stick with the program like we've done with the police cars, that's what enterprise, it'd be the same thing they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just, we as a council just need to be disciplined enough. And I think this council is, I can't guarantee future councils.
But wouldn't it make more sense to keep the police cars on enterprise and pull off everything else?
We've been
Because
doing
we could-
police cars every 4 years. I don't think they're not affecting the budget at all anyway, because we've been
Yeah,
cycling
right.
them every 4 years.
But let them enterprise have that and take the city, take over
But-
everything
And that
else.
could be an option to look at. I mean, I know that, and I don't want to get into, so-and-so has, but the police department that my son is on down in Texas, they're in the enterprise program, and that's exactly why, is because they just turn them out and it's it's just one thing off their plate that they have to get into the details, but all the support vehicles they go through and purchase individually. The only thing they put on are their patrol squads that are upfitted.
Well, the other information I got, and I don't know if this is accurate, it's something you can bring to committee meetings. I have had some staff members say that they were told things we put on this car at no charge, and they have not been.
Right.
Not that we gotten any trucks, but they're told this is now going to be extra.
I know that talking to Parks Department, we were told that when we spec it out, they will make sure that it's done and it will come with that on there and it'll be on the government bid. And then when it came, we had to arrange with, I can't think of in Lake Crystal with Christ Steel's box set and then the plow brackets and all the rest. And we had to facilitate that. It was not done by Enterprise. And that's not what we were told at all. So I'm really disappointed in the package that we received is not, in my opinion, the package that was narrated to us.
Not that I'm trying to put more work on you guys.
Well, we'll share it with you though.
Yep.
We promise. We'll sit in on the meetings too. and
Recommendation
point
is
fingers.
to refer this back to the Equipment Review Committee.
And Ways and Means. Yep.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. Thank you, EJ.
Can I just ask a clarification? As if Ram would suddenly open a window or Ford F-250s or something else would be available with something that's on our list, do you want us to proceed or do you want us to hold off until we've
Hold off.
had
Hold
this?
off. I think hold off right now.
I think the committee would, meet at the earliest convenience, so.
Yep.
Sounds
And
good. Thank you.
we would hit the dealerships here and say, hey, the window's open. Here's what our specs are. Pop an order. Let's see what we can get for a price.
Well, I just like the idea of keeping the sales local, and I'll use an example, Craig, when Chet was joking, he made a $5,000 donation to city for something, or something.
It was for adaptive playground equipment.
And he jokingly said, well, have Enterprise now donate 10,000 since we're buying all the vehicles from Enterprise. And he was, and I agree with him, he was half joking, but I also believe he's half serious and he's completely right.
Those dollars continue to move in the community when we spend them in the community.
Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 9. This is a commission board liaison reports. Actually, might have not met since we last met, Craig.
Yeah, the airport commission met last week. Couple of items that we talked about. We talked about crack seal project that we've gotten approval from with MnDOT Aviation, and so that'll be moving forward. They're talked about some of the other longer term issues, especially with input from the from our users at the airport. The corporate like Schwann's inputs or CJ, and they were updated on the current status as we know it of Helena. And then we also had a good discussion about re-going with the planning and zoning group to update our master plan, I guess is I think that's the term I'm looking for, is the master plan or the zoning.
The zoning
plan.
ordinance.
Right. So just to look at that because of improvements that have been proposed for the airport, which would be land acquisition. And I know that the our engineering department, Public Works, has sent out notices to, I think, 40 different interested individuals or communities?
It was 10 townships, and then Ghent and Minneota that are impacted by the future zoning ordinance. And we've heard back from Ghent.
Okay, yep, very good. Thank you, Jason. So other than that, there wasn't a whole lot else that came out of it, but it was a good conversation. And those meetings typically, if there isn't something pressing, we've tended to cancel. And I think it was the consensus of the group to just continue to meet more regular, just to have the conversation. There was as much discussion and input that was off agenda as on agenda, and it was important to do that. So, and there's a new member we welcomed on. It was member Brent Snodgrass. It was his first meeting, and there's some excitement there again now with some of the new membership. So I think it's good that we're going to try to meet more frequently. But that's really all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Steve?
So Cable Commission did not meet. The Community Services Advisory Board met on the 3rd. Updates include the Aquatic Center, obviously, and the disappointment that we've had there, and things going back for a year and a half, 2 years maybe even, depending on the legislative session. Mr. Vandermillen showed us a preview of the brochure for the community services, which looks really good. It'll be rolling out to the public on August 23rd. The majority of the classes are going to start the week after school. The pool is closing for the season the weekend after Sounds of Summer, so that's less than 2-3 weeks left, which means that summer's rapidly coming to a close. The ribbon cutting for the 150th Community Art Piece will be August 18th at 11:30 a.m. along with Independence Trail rededication. He being Mr. Vandermillen and the Community Services are working with VAST, formerly VAST, now Blue Peak, I keep forgetting that, about providing free Wi-Fi in Marshall's highest used parks. That would be Independence and Freedom, and a couple of others. More to come on that later. Matt Coleman shared the school update. They're going to be opening another referendum in November, so more to come on that from the school district. That's their news to share, but they're looking at $675 per pupil, which is less than a lot of other schools in the state. And that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. John?
The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee did meet, and that was primarily discussion, extended discussion on our World Cafe results and summary that we got back from the YMCA. We've got a number of items that we want further detail on and some just in-depth work on it. And then the committee wants to really pull out the higher priorities out of there, and we're looking at then means of how do we get that result out to the public so the public can take a look at it. The Public Housing Commission did not meet due to the executive directors was not available. However, working with our city administrators, working on setting up a meeting with a couple of members from the Public Housing Commission, myself, city administrator, so we can talk about some of the priorities and hopefully get back to kind of an annual presentation and update to this council on really where we're at with the public housing. So I think that's about it.
Good. Russ?
The only one of mine that will meet this month is Marshall Area Transit, and they'll meet Thursday. That's the only one. Otherwise, the CVB and library have canceled their August meetings. So that's all I have.
And Jim?
I have not met.
Okay. We'll move then to council member individual items. Jim, we'll start with your end.
I'm gonna, Sharon emailed us out a letter, I don't know, was you emailed it out or? Today about City Marshall. I broke my own rule and actually read it because I usually say I don't read anonymous letters. But I did want to respond to that letter because they made Marshall sound bad, and it's not bad. You know, they brought up that Bellows is closed and Thrifty White has closed. But at the same time, when Bellows closed, those folks should realize, I believe the wedding event center opens up the next week in that building, or next couple of weeks, which is a positive for that corner. Thrifty White, that was making economic, and they said, well, there's not another standalone drugstore, but there's another standalone drugstore. It's right next to where Steve Meister works. It was built there about 4 years ago. They had made a comment about there's no family restaurants in Marshall. I'm like, well, have you walked downtown? I'm looking at one there. I ate there actually at noon today. Walked over, and there's several family restaurants. I don't want to throw too many names out. And then they brought up shopping, that we needed Kohl's. Well, Kohl's itself is in financial distress, the company is, so we really don't want a Kohl's. But again, walk up and down your downtown. We have done a lot to redevelop our downtown. And I'm looking at two beautiful stores right across the road from me that are both shopping venues. And I know of several boutiques down that way. And I think there's a new one that opened up on 3rd Street. So my comment to letters like that is go out and explore your community. I appreciate your input from those folks, but go out and explore your community, because a lot of good things are happening in Marshall. And I read those, and it's like, folks, the bigger isn't necessarily better, because we have a lot of nice small restaurants and stores and other places to explore, and that's what makes a good community. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Russ?
A couple of things. Jason, maybe I'll ask you when it's time for you to speak, just an update on the school zone project. Those. The other thing, I'd just remind our listening public that the filing for positions on city council ends next Tuesday, I believe. And just in case you have not heard, fellow council members, for personal reasons, I will not be refiling. So, and I think John has already made that note, so there will be some new members on city council. So that's all I have.
Just a reminder that tomorrow for Ward 1, there is voting. And it's part of the primary, but we have 3 people running for that other chair over there, vacancy. And Ward 1, please get out and vote. So that's it.
I have nothing, thank you.
Steve?
Nothing.
I have just a few quick things. First off, to follow up on Jim, your comment, you made reference to the Mercantile building. Sharon and I and Lauren Deitz had the opportunity to tour that with the owner last Friday, and it's really incredible the amount of renovation and completion that they've done, not only for the upper room, which will be the venue for gatherings and weddings, but also some of the lodging areas that are up there that will serve the venue, as well as the second floor where the corporate offices of Ralco will be. It is very impressive that that type of addition will be open hopefully soon in downtown. That coupled with the Block 11 development that we see with the one building that has the excavation has started, and the second building of the 3 is really close on its heels in terms of the planning. So all of that will be good, and then that will also then bring up challenges with parking and some other things that are necessary when you bring an event center that could have 300 people that would attend it or more, and they have a corporate center that likely will have 50 employees that will be in that. So those are good issues for a downtown like Marshall to have. So good opportunities. Secondly, we did pass as a council a emergency ordinance with the moratorium on hemp-based THC food and edibles, edibles and beverages. The League of Minnesota Cities has formed a task force, and I've been appointed to that. And we've met for the first time, and the discussion really has been, and this task force, it's a lot of city attorneys are on this task force. There isn't a lot of elected officials. There's a lot of metro representation on there, which actually makes sense too. A lot of the discussion really has been on not only control, but also defining that control both as place and space. Place being, there's probably a zoning component here, and space being within the facility, where would the sales of these products actually occur? Is it behind the counter, and how is that controlled? So I anticipate this group is meeting about weekly now. I anticipate that in the next several weeks, the League of Cities will have kind of a template that cities can use as they fashion their own ordinances. Of course, there's also a possibility that the legislature would also, craft some similar type regulations, but that likely wouldn't happen until they're in session, for one thing, and that is 2023. So, and then the other thing I would say is that we're getting close on the 150th celebration, which will be in coordination or in conjunction with the Sounds of Summer. And again, there's a committee that has actually had their final official meeting was last week, and there has really been a lot of effort, a lot of plans, and it's really going to be a lot of good events that will be on that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and going into Sunday. So with that, I'll stop, and we'll move then to our staff reports, starting with Sharon Hansen, City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor and council members, we have tentatively scheduled a review of the city attorney RFPs for August 17th. The mayor has recommended the chair pro tem lead the committee with some staff, and will bring back a recommendation. There may be a middle step in there as well, because obviously this is a position that reports directly to the council. That has been scheduled. Numerous discussions with our Director of Administrative Services on the budget for 2023 and the levy. And obviously we have an early meeting on August 23rd starting at 3 to review some of those first numbers. And our Director of Administrative Services has received 2 bids for the insurance brokerage services for workers' comp and property and liability. And he will review that with Ways and Means at the end of August. I know last year there was some discussion at Ways and Means, so it's going to go to that committee and come to the full council in September. So that is all I had for a report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Jason?
Thank you. Councilman Labatt, you had asked for an update on the school crossings project, the RRFP project. We still anticipate that the contractor would start work next week, right away at the start of the week. They'll excavate for the medians and get those in place, but there is going to be delays on the actual crossing equipment, the RRFBs themselves, and the advanced speed zone signage. All of that is pushed out into mid-October, I believe. So we're working with Dunick on what an extension might look like to their contract, because the deadline is September 2nd. But we are holding fast that we expect the median work, the striping work, everything in the street to be completed by September 2nd, and they're giving us assurance that they can do that in the couple weeks that they'll have. So we expect that to be done before school starts. I know the school district has been pretty interested as well on where that's at. So expect to see that starting soon. Also expect to see the seal coat project start next week. We'll issue a statement on that. So residents should look and note when there's signs that start showing up on their block that say no parking to please don't be there, so we can get that done. It's a really quick process, but gets slowed down when there's cars in the way. Mill and overlay project was completed last week, so that's nice to see. No real change downtown on Lion Street or out in the industrial park on Halber. South First is going well, and they're doing some sanitary sewer work right now. I believe they moved to Greeley Street. Haven't been out there yet today, but that was the plan. So, I think that's about it. The parking lot behind City Hall, the Baldwin lot, probably won't start till after Sounds of Summer, so we're just sort of waiting on that. Also coming up, I guess, next week, BNSF will start working on some crossings. So County Road 7 and Fairview Street will have panel replacements. So those are really rough crossings. So that'll be nice. I think that we'll all have to be patient for a couple days with some detours as they do that work, but hopefully we'll have a better crossing there at both those locations. That's all I've got.
They did start today on the, at County Road 74, including the bike path.
Oh, they did end up closing the bike path?
Right, you can walk through it, but I mean, it may be completed now. I mean, I was biked by there at noon today, and so,
Good.
so. Any other questions for Jason? Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We're anxious to hear about your progress with Helena, so there's some
It's number one on my list.
there's
Ours too.
good news here, yeah.
There's news. I'm not saying it's good news, but the demolition of the dry fertilizer building should be accomplished in the near future. They are set to hire a local contractor to demolish and remove that building to continue subsoil testing under there.
Is that a bid that you kind of helped arrange?
Yes,
Good.
yes. Broadmoor Valley, the next favorite on the list. Repair building permits have been submitted by the property owner to repair, not remove, but repair the 3 troubled manufactured homes. He has hired a consulting engineer to advise on the structural work that needs to be done. Our building permit process, it's a 180-day process, so we have to let that work its way out. Now, because they are manufactured homes, they are subject to the Housing and Urban Development rules, and we are working with a consultant through the Department of Labor and Industry for the state of Minnesota who's advising the city as to what needs to be accomplished with each building permit. Myself and city staff we believe there's going to be problems with complying with all of the structural engineer issues. And then the North 7th Street annexation, Fairview Township has objected to the annexation, and they will not sign the joint resolution. I've been in contact with the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Board, and they want a legal brief submitted supporting Minnesota law, which says the parties are bound by the agreement that was signed in 1982. It's by state statute. There is no legal grounds to object, but there's been no signature yet obtained to the joint resolution to be submitted supporting annexation.
Okay,
And so it goes.
any questions for Dennis?
I have a quick question, and maybe it's Jason or Dennis, since you brought up Broadmoor Valley. Because he had received the grant for repairing his roads.
Correct.
Has that progressed beyond?
Yes, he has. Bolton and Menk has been hired as a consulting engineer. They have submitted a cost analysis. About 20%, $94,000 of the $500,000 grant is going into the development of the staging of what needs to be done. And they're trying to set themselves up for a second grant application for 2023. I believe the end of this month they will open up for soliciting additional grants. And yes, there is a process in place, and yes, they have made progress on, number one, retaining a consulting engineer, and they've got a plan in place. And there was always a big question, do you put all the money into the road, but you have to tear up the road to put the infrastructure underground? And Bolton Menk is not advising to put the money in the road at this time. Let's start underground and go from there. So yes, to answer your question, they have made progress.
Okay.
John?
Question. Then one of the other subjects that you worked on was the house on Main Street, down on that end of Main Street anyway.
Yes.
I see there's been some work going on there, removing some shrubbery
Yes.
around it.
The property owner did contact me, said she and her husband had been in place. They had put some of the panels from the front porch that had blown away. They tried to reconstruct some of those, but they did contact a local tree cutter to take care of a lot of the shrubbery. And they're still working to be appointed as guardians of the owner. I guess I shouldn't have said the owner was there. The owner's sister wants to be appointed by the courts in South Dakota to give her some authority to sell or demolish the property.
Okay,
Yes. But yes, the shrubbery, they have made some progress there.
thank you.
Yeah.
That'll move us then to the remaining items on the agenda. They include the administrative brief for your review, the listing of building permits, as well as the listing of upcoming meetings. And we'll note that the next upcoming meeting will be the special meeting. That'll be Friday at, I believe, 12:30 p.m. Purpose of that would be the local canvassing by the city. The county canvassing board, which I serve on, they'll meet Thursday at 10:30 in the commissioner's room.
That's this Friday.
This Friday. And I believe you're absent, right?
I'm absent.
I'm also absent,
So we need,
or I'll have to show up.
Yeah.
you okay at 12:30?
I can make no promises. I have patience.
Now, is it Hoyle to zoom in for that?
It's not
Okay.
legal, no.
All right.
No. And it'll be a very brief meeting. Okay.
We could have an office call out with Steve.
Yeah.
It might be really long meeting waiting for Steve to show up.
With that, is there anything else to come forward this evening at this meeting?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We are adjourned.